We'll do this Formula 1 walk and talk style, shall we? Norwich City picking up a 1-1 draw here at home to Hull, which, if I'm being honest, the more we talked about the game before it kicked off, the more convinced I got that it was probably going to finish 1-1. You start to look at the table and things and how Norwich's season's going, and maybe it's going to be a smaller step rather than a bigger one. But I mean, ultimately, Norwich would have won this game had they have not been so sloppy in one moment in the first half. Having started the game really well, they just couldn't get themselves ahead. They had some half-decent chances. James Maddison clipped the post. Really good opportunities there, and had Norwich got themselves ahead in the game, I think it'd have been completely different, because Hull did look really nervous at the back, and they haven't picked up a win away from home in 14 months, so I think that was always going to be the case. But of course they didn't. They got themselves ahead, and as soon as they did that, the whole dynamic of the game changed. Now, it was a pretty woeful goal defensively from Norwich. Tim Closer and Zimmerman getting themselves in a muddle, really. It was well taken by Nuadiko and well made in terms of a break, and Hull have got that quality, of course. They were playing Premier League football last year, most of them, so that was never an issue. But they had been looking like they could, they had sort of established themselves in the game before that goal came, so it wasn't so much that it was coming, because Norwich kind of dominated it from start to finish, really, but they were better in those moments, and I think it was starting to tell, and the goal, although it didn't really come against the run of play, was still sort of out of the blue almost. And that really was that then, because Norwich had set themselves up with a really difficult task of trying to break down a side who were desperate for their first away win in 14 months, and you could tell it. And David Myler, sadly, red card waiting to happen, I would say. No real surprise that happened, because that's the kind of player he was, and Hull were very physical. I think they spent 90 minutes kicking James Maddison to the floor, so ultimately probably paid the price for that, because it was just a cumulative effect. I don't really know what the referee was supposed to do, and there could have been far more bookings. They were almost taking it in turns on knocking James Maddison, who also bought his own free kicks at times as well, it must be said. If you look at the stats from today, Norwich absolutely dominated it in terms of chances and possession and shots on goal, but it didn't really feel like that watching it, because Hull were resolute. They had good thick defensive lines. They looked very solid, and actually Norwich didn't really create proper clear-cut chances. Again, this kind of thing at home where it's just overplaying it at times. Patience that really tested everyone's patience rather than encouraged them. and that's been quite a difficult thing going here at Carrow Road, and this international break doesn't really seem to have solved it. But of course, let's get down to the fact that in the 95th minute, well, 96th really by the time it went in, Norwich City managed to conjure up an equaliser somehow. I wasn't banking on that at all. A lovely flick from Nelson Oliveira, brilliantly taken. I think there was an initial knock-on from Cameron Jerome, all because of Marco Stiepermann's long throw, which his foot was up as he took it. The question is, was it up before he took it, as he took it, after he took it? I don't know. I haven't seen a replay of it, and no one else has seemed to mention it. So I'm just saying what I said and what I saw at the exact moment it happened. But of course, it doesn't matter. The place buzzed at that goal. Even in the circumstances, I haven't heard a noise like that for a little while in terms of a proper goal, so that bodes well. And of course, everyone, ultimately, it does feel like a win to a degree, because it's a 8th game unbeaten now, and just another sign that there is resolve in this Norwich side, which is great to see. And it was tested quite hard today. What they have now is a week, of course, to prepare for the derby in Ipswich, which will be a real test, and that's going to be tricky. They are wobbling at the moment, Ipswich, but it's been so long since they've beaten Norwich, they'll be desperate for it. A bit like Hull today in terms of picking up an away win. So it'll be a real test to see how Norwich deal with that. That said, there's something about playing away from home that's suiting them at the moment, and if they can not switch off like they did today, I think that will bode really well in terms of how they can go and approach that game. But we won't talk too much about Ipswich now, because we've got this whole week to talk about it, and it will be good that Norwich will have a whole week to prepare, to rest, because there were people looked a bit dead on their feet after today. Norwich short on numbers. Great to see Todd Cantwell on the bench, but it did kind of emphasise how short they are. Some of those aren't going to be coming back in terms of Alex Tettey, of course, but maybe Josh Murphy will be fit, maybe Marco Stiepermann will be closer, and maybe Nelson Oliveira will be closer to full fitness as well. Great chat with him after the game today, talking about his injury. He's happier not with the goal, but with the fact that the game he played today, he didn't feel any after effects in his groin, so that tells you where his mind is at. great on the derby, you'll be seeing those quotes later, and great on the summer speculation and why he's still here. If anyone wants to doubt Nelson Oliveira's commitment, I don't really think you should ever do that, because in terms of the way he's playing at the moment, how he feels at the moment, because quite clearly he wants to be here and he wants to have real success here, and he loves playing for this club and wants to bring success to the club, which is something you hear quite a lot, but you know, Nelson tells it in a very convincing way, most definitely. So that certainly bodes well. All they need to do now is get him fit, and that will be a big help, because once again he's chipped in here and somehow dug a point out of this mess that really looked like Hull were gonna come away with something that they will feel 14 months worth. They really deserve it. A little bit of aggro at the end, probably because of the emotions of the situation. Daniel Farke got a talking to for being well on the pitch celebrating the goal, and there's some great pictures of that going around, of course. But you know, it's a passionate game, isn't it? As I think we've said it a few times in a few games this season. So there we go. Norwich take a point, and it probably feels like 3. It certainly will if they get a positive result come next Sunday. Can't wait.